Jose. And can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So just give me, Jose, 1 minute and I can start the recording. Perfect.
This meeting is being recorded.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and be the host for this session, along with my colleagues, Kusei Salebi and also Juan Villalta. And I want to thank you, all of you guys, for joining us today. Thank you all for the participation in our guest speaker as well, Grant McConnell. So thank you very much. And for LPMN for hosting the PM Bistro webinar. This is our first webinar for 2022. We really appreciate that have you set aside 1 hour from your busy schedule and have attended to this event. Our tonight's topic is Withitness in project management. This is how we have organized our webinar, starting with the intro, then we are going to have an icebreaker, and where we are going to split into smaller groups, and then we're going to have like an overview of the PM Bistro, and then we pass it over to our speaker to talk about this interesting topic, and then we are going to have a Q&A session. So let me start with some housekeeping items here. So this webinar, as Kusei mentioned, will be recorded and also broadcasting YouTube. Today's session is scheduled to last 1 hour, including the Q&A session. Questions, can you put on the chat box, and we can read it during the Q&A session, and or during that segment of the webinar, you can open your mic and feel free to ask the question. The slides and the link to the recording for this presentation will be sent over to your email after this webinar. So you can expect to have you in your inbox 3 days after this webinar. And this is our LinkedIn group. So Kusei, if you can put on the chat as well. So please join us in our LinkedIn group. So the idea is that we share some project management topics there. So this is a collaborative space where our community exchange some topics, some ideas around project management. And at the end, we will have a survey. So you please let us know how we did it, if you like the topic, also how our speaker did it as well. So that feedback will be greatly appreciated. And let me introduce the host for tonight. First of all, Kusei. He is a CAPM, project coordinator at Scotiabank, and has knowledge on project management and business analysis. He has a lot of experience with multinational companies across different countries, Canada, Germany, and Turkey. And myself, Amanda Cisneros, I have a bachelor in engineering. I have an MBA, my PMP, and recently my Scrum Master certificate. I have more than 10 years of experience in project management, delivering business and technology projects across different industries, such as banking, airline, transportation, and most recently, and the fintech. And this is our agenda for today. So we're gonna have the icebreaker for around 10 minutes, where we can get to know each other a little bit more. And then we are gonna have our main topic, Withitness in project management, around 25 minutes. and then the Q&A session, and finally the wrap up. And here I pass it over to Kusei.
Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us. It's going to be a great session. As Amanda said, here now we are in the icebreaker session. We do this to get to know each other a little bit, and we always ask a small question which initiates the discussion and makes us ready for the main presentation of the day. And our question will be in the next slide. So when we join into the little groups, Amanda will separate us into smaller groups. We can give our take on when you start a project, do you conduct stakeholder assessments? And do you think it's important and why? And feel free to share your LinkedIn profiles or the other connections that you want to add, either on the chat for everyone or within the ice break session group too. But 10 minutes, sometimes it becomes short. So after you join, you can share your LinkedIn profiles too. But when we join, yeah, we can go with this question and explain who we are and like what do we want to learn, those kind of things. Whatever you want to share, that would be appreciated. And after 10 minutes, we will be back here and Grant will start the main topic.
Perfect. So I think we are around 14 people, I think. So maybe I'm going to split into 4 different rooms. And let's get to know a little bit more and then comes back to the main room in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, you're back.
Hello.
How was your breakout room? Was good?
It was good. Yeah, it was nice to meet somebody else and find out that you have so much in common.
Was that intentional that I connected with Grant, Amanda?
Uh-huh. Sorry, what do you say, Mamin?
Was that intentional that I got to connect with Grant?
I don't think so, but it's good. It's good.
Welcome back, everyone.
Perfect.
No,
So everybody is in the room now, okay, right? Perfect. How was the breakout room? When it was good?
It was interesting. We got a very nice answers and a little interesting chat. Absolutely.
Okay. It wasn't too short, not too long. It was good.
As usual, it's too short, but I guess.
Right.
But at
I
least
think so.
we had the basis to start probably discussing more in the future with these people. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So please feel free to put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, so maybe we can connect with other people that we haven't in our network. So that would be great to expand our community. So that would be great and stay connected. So great. So let's continue with this interesting topic. So the learning point for tonight, it will be connect with people and create networks. So that's why it's very important. And especially in project management, everything is connection, people, and be informed, learn to listen. This is what we expect to have tonight. And now I'll pass it over to Juan. The floor is yours, Juan.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Welcome, everybody. I'm Juan Villalta. I'm a member of the Latin Project Management Board Director. And my role for this session tonight is to introduce a speaker. Grant McConnell is actually, I will say that this is one of the rare occasions where we got somebody who is a high quality person in the field of project management. Grant McConnell has been, he's a project management, has been a project manager for almost 30 years. He has worked in the banking, insurance, and IT, nuclear, and the medical industries. He has a master's and certificate in project management as a PMP, a Prince 2, the process change management, and also a Scrum Master. His background includes theater arts, acting, directing, and writing. And but obviously his main role in the community is as a project management. So without further ado, let me introduce a speaker for tonight, my friend, Grant McConnell. Grant, floor is yours.
Thanks, Juan. Thanks, everyone. I guess first and foremost, we're going to start off with the topic, and the topic is Withitness. So if we could go to the first page. Oh, here we go. Withitness. So I came across Withitness when I studied adult education 30 some years ago. And it's a concept that was developed by a guy named Jacob Koonin, who's an educational theorist. And what he's basically done is created this theory about the withitness of a teacher. And he says it's the teacher's awareness of what's going on in all parts of the classrooms at all times, and been able to communicate that awareness to the students, both verbally and non-verbally. Some people say withitness from a teacher's perspective is like having eyes in the back of your head and knowing just when something is about to get out of control. And one of the best examples I know of classroom withitness comes from a story I heard from Jim Carrey. Yeah, Jim Carrey, the famous comedic actor. And if you can imagine Jim Carrey being in your classroom as a teacher, there is no bigger threat that I can imagine for someone stealing everyone's attention. And Jim Carrey did that very thing. At the drop of a penny, he would go into one of his characters and completely disrupt the class, and mayhem would ensue, because who would want to pay attention to the teacher when you've got Jim Carrey in your classroom? So the teacher approached Jim Carrey and said, Jim, if you're quiet and you don't disturb anyone in the classroom for 50 minutes and you let me teach, I'll give you the last 10 minutes of the class to do your act. And that to me is an example of Withitness in terms of knowing what's going on in the classroom, knowing who's there, and how to deal with them effectively with respect and care. So if we could go on to the next slide. So then I thought, as a project manager, there's a lot of the same principles that apply to Withitness as there is with a teacher. I've seen a lot of really intelligent project managers over the years with all kinds of talents and skills, and they could do just about everything, but they inevitably failed on the people side of things. They never quite got what they were supposed to do. They didn't understand what was going on within their project, and they just didn't have the same success as those that I said were more with it. And to me, Withitness is a project manager's awareness quotient. And it's not about having an accurate Gantt chart. It's about your capacity to perceive the needs of all your project stakeholders with accuracy and care, just like that teacher did. It's knowing about what's going on in your projects and acting accordingly. So I can think of many examples where in your project you might have disgruntled team member, and that disgruntled team member may be verbalizing a lot of negative things about the project. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? And and then it's about seeing what's going on with that individual and addressing that individual, but addressing that individual with respect and care. It's about taking action when you know that there's something wrong. But the first thing is you've got to be able to know that there's something wrong. And it's also ties into our stakeholder assessments. We have various stakeholders within our projects. And a lot of times, my experience, what I've seen is the stakeholder assessment is kind of skipped, or it's just a task that's done at the beginning of the project, and there's no follow through because environments change. So stakeholder management to me is more of an ongoing process than a task that started at the beginning of the project. I'll go to the next slide, please. Connect. So that's my first message, is to become more with it in terms of what's going on. We have to connect with our people. We have to connect with people. I bring up this quote from Melinda Gates. Deep human connection is the purpose and the result of a meaningful life, and it will inspire the most amazing acts of love, generosity, and humanity. I also believe that deep human connection can help achieve project success. Next slide, please. Mindfulness. So I don't know if you're aware of mindfulness or meditation, and these practices of good mental health. But when you're meditating, what you're doing is you're taking the time to connect with your mind, figure out what's going on. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to take you through a little bit of a meditative process. No fears. I'm not gonna hypnotize or try to hypnotize any of you. I wish I had the skills to do it, but I'm really not going to do this. Just stick with me for a couple of minutes as I go through this exercise with you. So I want you to close your eyes. Breathe in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. And just take a minute to connect with your mind. Probably a lot of things going on in there. Now I want you to think about your project team. I want you to imagine your project team is all in the same room with you. We're all working together, none of this remote stuff. Take a minute to imagine everybody on your team. Now I want you to imagine that everyone on that team is wearing a mask. What are they hiding behind that mask? Are they sitting there going, why am I here? I don't want to be part of this project. I've got too many things going on. This may be an opportunity for me, and that's the only way I'm participating. Why is that guy in charge when I'm so much smarter than they are? And then think about what you're possibly hiding with your own mask. Because we all kind of wear masks in these professional and social environments. We're all kind of hiding something or trying to make people perceive that we're something that we're quite not. I'm not saying we're phonies, but we all kind of have a mask. And as myself, as a project manager, I might be sitting there going, how can we possibly get all of this done in this short period of time with so very few dollars? And what I'm suggesting is when you meet with your team, don't be afraid to take your mask off. Be the first to unveil a little bit more about yourself and initiate a connection. So my view, that connection is established by opening ourselves up a little bit. If we could go to the next slide, please. Another concept I want to bring up is strengthening your intelligence agency. What does that mean? It means that through their networks, you gain knowledge, valuable knowledge that's going to help you with your projects and your career. How do you do so? You connect with your team, as we just discussed. There may be different ways in which you connect, but find a way to connect. Establish relationships outside of your team. Maybe somebody on your team belongs to a public speaking group. Join the public speaking group. Pay attention to what other people are doing in the company. Pick up the phone or dial them up and say, hey, I just read that report that you guys just published. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Express interest in what other people are doing. And make it a habit to reach out to people. I don't know, 10 minutes a day, pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't spoken with in 3 months or 6 months. And try to find a way to be in the loop. Like I've found like in my career, I found out so many interesting things about the projects and the people that are working on my projects just by being in the loop. I can think of times where I was assigned to a project in a fairly large organization, and by just sitting in other PM offices, project management offices, there's actually two other divisions within the same company doing the same project. I found out that certain people were at risk of leaving the organization. I found out that some people didn't particularly enjoy working with me. There's lots that you can learn, and I just recommend that you think about the concept of strengthening your intelligence agency. And the other thing I think is important is be yourself, be natural, learn to establish a rapport with people and make that rapport a positive rapport. Don't get drawn into the ugly gossip and so on that happens in all organizations, but look to aspire to the more positive relationships. Next slide, please. You can't learn with your mouth open. I'll read the quote. Sometimes problems can only be solved if you're willing to shut your mouth and learn how to open up your ears, heart, and head. It's about listening. Listening is not, I don't think it's an easy thing. I've been told I'm a great listener. I've been told that I'm a terrible listener. But I try to listen. And I've tried to improve upon my listening skills, about looking for what the messages are that you're receiving. Now, one of the questions that we got up front was, how do you deal with difficult stakeholders on a project? It's a difficult question to ask because a lot of it is very circumstantial. But my perception generally is of a difficult stakeholder is that there's somebody that has concerns, who doesn't feel that they're being listened to, and their concerns are not being addressed. And a lot of times dealing with difficult stakeholders is more about shutting your mouth, listen to what they're saying, be open to their concerns, and demonstrate that you're addressing their concerns. I have an example. So I was working with one of the big banks, and I was asked to go to the United States for us to work in a smaller bank that the big Canadian bank had purchased. And I was asked to go in to improve the profit ratio for a particular lending organization within this bank. I walked in with my team, and we met with the vice president of lending, and that guy stood up to me and he said, I want you to get the heck out of my office. I don't want you and your analysts coming in here and doing all kinds of analysis. I don't want you here. I don't want to see your face. I don't want you to listen. I don't want to listen to anything you guys have to say. And he was screaming and yelling and kicking dirt and spitting and calling my mother fat and doing all kinds of things. And it was really horrible. So what I did, the first thing I did is I just shut my mouth. Because for two reasons. One, I wanted to hear what his concerns were and how he wanted those concerns addressed. And two, I didn't want to get any spit in my mouth. So I listened to this individual, And what I picked up was that he was concerned that I was going to be modifying, I was going to be lifting the risk tolerance for the lending operations, thus resulting in more defaults in the loans, and at the end, compromising the profitability of his group. So that's what he was telling me. So then I was able to say, okay, once I was able to play back what he was saying to me, I said, well, let's establish a mechanism by which we can make sure that that does not happen. So working with my Six Sigma black belts and everything, we did all kinds of analysis, and we put modules together, and we ran a ton of data through the modules. And in the end, by lifting the risk tolerances, we were indeed causing more defaults in the loans. They're forecasting more defaults in the loans and negatively impacting his profitability. So my message about difficult stakeholders is maybe they're right. And there's a lot of value in listening to what they have to say. Next slide, please. Now, how can I achieve withitness? Can emotional intelligence be learned? It can be improved upon if you're willing to take some risks. But yes, I think you can improve upon your withitness or emotional intelligence. My view is it comes from people. It's getting involved. It's learning through trial and error. But there are other ways you can do so. And I just came up with a couple of examples. There's Dale Carnegie. There's his famous book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. But Dale Carnegie has many courses that focus on emotional intelligence. From an awareness standpoint, I really like doing the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I find that helps me be more with it in terms of what's going on with my particular projects. Then there's various personality profile programs out there. I came up with 2, Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. Now, they can be quite lengthy tests that you take, and they spill out a bunch of, they spill out a profile about you, and some of the things of the profile might be right, and some of the things you might contest, no, I'm not like that. But it does give you some insights into yourself. It does give you insights about how other people may be motivated and how you can effectively communicate with them. So there is some gold in those hills in terms of the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagrams. Don't be afraid to solicit feedback. Ask people for feedback. If you've established a connection with somebody, they'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you when you could do better. And then lastly, don't be afraid to survey your team on your projects. You can use various tools that are out there. I can think of SurveyMonkey as one of them, where you can survey your team once every 2 weeks, once a month, just to see how they're doing. Do they still believe in the project? Do they still believe we're going to be successful? Do they have any concerns? And if you've established a connection with your team, you will get some valuable feedback from them. So those are some ways in which you can do it. But I know there are others, but I believe it does start with establishing connections and trust. Okay, maybe go to the next slide. Oh, we jumped one.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I know I'm watching the time as well. So My conclusions, my message is our one, stakeholder assessments are not just a task, but it's an ongoing process. Connect with people. Strengthen your intelligence agency. And lastly, learn to listen. Listening skills can be improved upon. And that concludes my presentation. And now we'll open up the Q&A and see if there's any questions out there.
Grant, thank you so much for this presentation. I think there are many points that are super beneficial for everyone. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much for that. So yes, we have questions. We were gathering questions since the last couple of weeks after we start announcing this event. So you touched a couple of points in this question. However, we can answer it like this. So if someone doesn't know anything about Withitness, very simply, what would you say to this? How can we utilize Withitness for personal career growth and to increase overall team performance?
Okay, so how can I use Withitness to promote personal growth and career growth?
Exactly, for personal and for the team performance too, like increasing overall team performance too. Yeah, you can approach it from different perspectives, but yeah, give your take on it, and thank you.
So I guess how can you do it? So I think it requires an effort first. You have to make a conscientious effort of knowing and seeking what's going on within your team and what's going on outside your team. It's getting in the game. And I think that through that ability of knowing what's going on around you, you'll also get feedback of what's going on with you yourself. You'll get that feedback will come back to yourself, and be open to the feedback and grow. In terms of your team success, again, having a team connect is a team that will help each other. It's a team that'll help you, that won't throw team members under the bus when they've made a mistake. They'll take someone aside and say, "Hey, I noticed that you've got there's an error in your spreadsheet. Your calculations are off." It can be many different things, but it's like a family that connects is a family that thrives. I'd say the same thing goes with the project teams. And it's finding those occasions where you can do something outside of the work environment, whatever it may be, and grow as a team together.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. And also, I think the exercise you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation also helps on this, to self-assess this, and about thinking about the team members too. So there are two questions too that are related to your answer and related with the first question too. So, is this skill is a skill or attribute can be learned? If so, how so? And is this skill or attribute, is this something measurable? And how to self-detect this quality on the self, and how to assess others' level of Withitness?
Yes, so with it, I think it's a skill and attribute. It's being in the know. And as I said at the beginning of the project, I've worked with some brilliant people over the years, and they knew their technology, they knew their insurance, whatever it may be. They were experts within their own field, but they were kind of a little clueless about what was going on within their projects. And in terms of improving that Withitness, I think it comes from the things that I talked about: connecting, surveying, and connecting with people, strengthening your intelligence agency, and then lastly, learning to listen. So yes, I believe it can be learned. Some people, it comes very naturally to them. Other people, they have to take a more concerted effort to focus on it as a self-improvement. In terms of a scale or a score of Withitness, I'm not aware of anything along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the answer. Also, yeah, it takes effort, as you said, and it comes naturally when the teams are working together in a normal scenario where it's like physically being in the same office or the environment. However, what would you say for these situations that we are in? Okay, we're going back to the hybrid models or completely back to normal models. However, for the teams that are still working online and distant from each other, they cannot have the interactions. That's why developing this Withitness holistically within the teams is a little bit challenging. What is your advice for the online teams to uh, emphasize this or take advantage of this quality?
Yeah, so I've been working remotely now for 2 years. It is more difficult to connect with people in a remote situation. I do make it a point, though, to reach out to people on my team and to my stakeholders. And sometimes I reach out just to say, how was your weekend?
Mhm.
Or if I knew they were doing something, I'm naturally curious about what people do, and I like people. So I do reach out to people and ask them how they are. And, I'll call them up and, spend 5 minutes talking about last night's hockey game, if they like hockey, or if they saw a movie, discuss the movie, or whatever it may be. But I do make a conscious effort of doing that. And I also practice what I preach. I reach out to former colleagues as well. I'll call them up and I'll just say, hello, how are you? And so that's what I try to do in a remote situation. I do look forward to when we can all get together again, though, because it is more difficult to connect. It's more difficult to read body language. Like I'm in meetings. I have another example where I was presenting a concept to a team the other day, and it was a brand new concept, and I got no questions at the end of it. So I knew that however I had communicated that concept was not effective. So then I reached out individually to the team members and asked them, so what did you really think? And then eventually I was able to elicit some really valuable feedback. And then I used that feedback to find a different way to present the same concepts. And now I'm starting to feel that they're starting to grasp what we're doing and why. But again, I make an effort of doing this. And I care what people think.
Exactly, that's very important. Thank you for that answer too. I think we have time for one or maybe two questions. I will combine two questions together because they're similar. But so from your experience too, what kind of a process or approach do you take when it comes to dealing with difficult stakeholders and keeping in mind what we learned from this Withitness, and what kind of tools and techniques you recommend conducting when doing stakeholder assessment?
Yeah, so I know that I have one or two of my team members on this seminar, and I always tell I use the expression, it's not about the nail in the head. And if any of you have ever seen the nail in the head video, it's quite insightful in terms of human behavior. So in the video, a woman is complaining about this aching pain in her head, and her spouse is pointing to the fact that she has a nail inside of her head. And maybe if she just removed the nail, the pain would go away. And she doesn't want the advice. She doesn't want to be told what to do. She wants to be heard. And without knowing the circumstances of your difficult stakeholders, my one consistent piece of advice and the one consistent thing I do is try to find out what their concerns are. Because most people are good. Most people aren't going to be jerks for the sakes of being jerks. They've got a good reason why they've got apprehensions about your project. And you need to, as a PM, you need to know what those apprehensions are and what you can do about it. And you may not bring them to be a champion of your project. If you're closing down their department, they're never going to be a champion of your project, but maybe you can address some of their concerns and bring them to more of a point of neutrality versus being a pure detractor to the objectives you're trying to reach.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the answer too. And we can take this as the final question. When it comes to dealing in conflicting situations with external or internal stakeholders, actually we gave the answer to the internal situations a lot. So this is for much more for the external stakeholders and like possible conflicting situations with these. Do you think having the quality of the withitness in a high level helps that? And this is the final one too. Like, how can we teach a team member to increase or be aware of this withitness and become a better team player within the team?
That's a difficult question because there's a line, right? Professionally, there's a line. Now, if you have open discourse with that team member, you can start to talk about these things. I would recommend that if they have a problem, that they would address that problem. So let me give an example of somebody that I've worked with in the past. It was a PM, a very, very intelligent guy, knew his technology inside and out, but he only kind of had one way in which he dealt with adversity. And that's with aggression. He tended to be a little bit more aggressive towards people when they didn't do what he asked them to do. So, and this is a very smart individual who's very charismatic and charming in many ways, but so what we did is we went together on a course in tactfulness. So I said, I will go with you on this course. We'll go on it together. Instead of me pointing out where, keep pushing on harboring on something that maybe he could improve upon, I said, let's go through this together. So that's one example of something I've done in my history.
Yeah, I think it's a good approach to go together with that, especially when it comes to someone who sometimes get aggressive like that. But yeah, this concludes the Q&A session. Thank you so much for the answers, Grant, and thank you everyone for asking the questions. As we said in the chat too, later on, if you have any other questions, just post them in the LPMN group on LinkedIn. You can comment or direct the message or go to the LPMN site and you can find our contact information there too. So let us know about the questions if they arise in the future, and we are happy to, of course, answer them all. And yeah, we are wrapping up. Thank you so much, and I'm leaving to Amanda.
Thank you, Kusei. No, thank you very much. I think it has been a great conversation, very interesting topic. So as I said at the beginning, when I first met Grant, so there was a new concept for me and for sure something to apply in all my projects and also with my team, definitely. And so this is just the invitation for everyone here tonight, and also spread the word with your network as well. So we're gonna have our next session on April 27th, same time, 6:30. But this time it's going to last 1.5 hours because we are gonna have the PMBOK new edition. So what's under the hood? So we're gonna see what are the difference between the previous edition with this new edition and how we can take advantage of this new approach that has been outlined in this new edition of the PMBOK. So I think it would be very interesting to sharpen our project management knowledge as well. So with this new edition in the PMBOK. So please join us in the PM Bistro group. So I think the link is on the chat as well. So take a look our LPMN website as well. And also if you have other colleagues that you know that they couldn't attend to this event, so this is the link for our YouTube channel as well, if they want to watch the session later on. So let's do that. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, please your support on providing your feedback on this webinar. So I put the link on the chat. It won't take you more than a minute to fill out the survey, and that will be very beneficial for all of us and also for our speaker to do it better next time. Thank you very much. I don't know if Juan Grant has any additional comments, so go ahead.
No, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to speak on this topic, and I thank people for sitting through this with me. Thank you.
And from my side, I want to thank you, Grant, for this presentation. It's fantastic. One thing that I remember that we started discussing this collaboration, and you mentioned the topic, we were so excited because we were going beyond the academical aspect of the project management kind of thing, out of the PMBOK. We were talking about, real life skills that we had to develop in order to be successful in project management and in every other aspect in our life. So thank you for bringing out this presentation. And I'm sure that many of us, we're going to be using these ideas in our work in the future. Thanks a lot, man.
I thank you, Juan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and great presentation. Thank you. Thank you all for your support. And thank you, Grant, also for all your help and support and for willing to help us. It has been great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a good night,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Have a nice
Thanks,
day.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Bye-bye.